This is the Tree of Life, Season 17, Chapter 9. In this episode, we will be talking about the ratio of digital to analog structures, and how it impacts the digital versus the analog stream. To begin, as between two self-conscious subjects, there is a resonance as between the frequencies by which the attention shifts from some object to some bodily rhythm, that is, self-consciously. Since we know that this movement of attention to some object, in negation, results in the conversion of an analog structure to a digital one. And we know that the movement of the attention to some bodily rhythm or cycle, in negation, results in the conversion of a digital structure to an analog one. We can see that the resonance of these two cycles for two self-conscious subjects reflects the individual transformation of analog to digital and back again for each individual. Now, although digital structures generate exclusive word associations, the scope of this exclusivity is in gradations. Broad exclusivity is marked by large shifts or overcorrections, whereas more minute, finer, nuanced, more precise exclusivity is marked by smaller shifts. In Season 17, Chapter 2, we talked about how digital structures can preserve or bank self-consciousness relative to some self-conscious subject. We also talked about how in the shifting of the attention from an object, which is a self-conscious subject, to a bodily rhythm or cycle, there is a reshuffling of which impulses are substitutionary. This reshuffling was used to explain how more fundamental impulses become subject to affirmation. However, it is more accurate to say that the filtering of substitutionary impulses such that more fundamental impulses are exposed to affirmation reflects the lawsiness of the resonance frequency, as between person A and person B, being two self-conscious subjects. Since these fundamental impulses are lacking in nuance, representing broader impulses, they are inherently more exclusionary in word associations. Thus, we can see that even if initially, the resonance frequency is non-lossy, possessing a greater proportion of analog structures for person A, the impulses representing greater precision, it invariably can become more lossy over time, representing a greater self-conscious deficit, and an preference for digital structures. The tendency of resonance frequencies to become more lossy over time reflects the tendency of impulses to be preserved in digital structures over analog ones. Larger structures comprising a ratio of analog to digital structures, which is 1:1, results in a tendency to form a negational valence. Likewise, as the ratio departs from a 1:1 ratio, in either direction, preferring analog or digital structures, the result is the atomization of the structure into a fluid. Thus, we can say that spatial non-consensuality is not described by an overabundance of analog structures, except relative to the more common equilibrium state of a preference for digital structures, which are atomized. On the other hand, affirmational valence is associated with structures which are slightly larger than the atomized forms. Affirmational valence tends to terminate or occur at the ends of a larger structure. Thus, we can see that the way that digital streams seem to pass the barrier between vessels has to do with their atomization. Whereas, the exclusionary nature of a spatial non-consensual state has to do with the negational valence of larger structures. That's the end of the podcast for today.